The heavy clang of the iron prison gates echoed behind him as Michael draped his single bag of belongings over his shoulder. For the first time in 12 years, his feet hit the pavement as a free man. The chill of the morning air reminded him that the world he once knew had changed, and so had he. Rewind over a decade, and Michael was just another 24-year-old trying to find his path. But a series of terrible choices, fueled by desperation and bad influences, landed him behind bars on charges of armed robbery. 12 years, the judge said with finality, that number reverberating in Michael's chest. What started as tragedy, a day he'd always regretted, was now the beginning of something unexpected, a mission that would make him a voice for justice system reform. Prison was exactly what he feared it would be: cold, violent, dehumanizing. But somewhere in the noise of that chaos, Michael found silence. Books became his lifeline, and with them, a world he had barely known came into focus. Titles on self-improvement, history, law, and most importantly, stories of people who had transformed their pain into purpose. And then there were the conversations with fellow inmates, stories that shared a tragically common thread: systemic injustice, poverty, and cycles they couldn't escape. Slowly, Michael started to understand something. The system wasn't just designed to punish, it was designed to bury people. And so the idea was born. While confined to a prison library one day, Michael scribbled on the back of an old receipt he'd found: "System versus stories, voices heard, truths told." He didn't fully understand the words then, but they stayed with him, fueling the bedtime daydreams he'd revisit nearly every night. Upon release, Michael had no money, no job, and nowhere to go but the couch at his older sister's home. But what he did have, for the first time in years, was purpose. With help from a tiny loan from a childhood friend, Michael bought a used microphone and began tinkering with recording software. He taught himself everything online, from editing to uploading. The first episode of Broken Chains, Stories of Justice and Hope, came out 2 months later. The podcast wasn't flashy. It didn't even sound professional at first, but it was real. Michael began by telling his own story: what prison had taken from him, but also what it had given him: perspective. Soon, he started interviewing other formerly incarcerated people, each with harrowing, humanizing stories of resilience. With every episode, Michael gained a following. People were listening: everyday citizens, journalists, even politicians. But it wasn't just about telling stories, it was about demanding change. As the episodes gained traction, so did Michael's message. The justice system wasn't broken. It was functioning exactly how it was designed. And that design needed reform. 2 years later, Broken Chains was streaming on platforms worldwide. Michael had partnered with nonprofits to highlight reentry support programs and policymakers pushing for sentencing reform. His work helped a listener understand why second chances weren't just about charity. They were about justice. Standing on a crowded stage at a TEDx event years later, Michael shared this thought with thousands. "I'm not here because I escaped the system. I'm here because I'm proof that people can change, but only if society gives them the tools and the space to do so." The audience rose to its feet, the sound washing over Michael like a symphony. From prisoner to podcaster to advocate, Michael had reclaimed his narrative, and in doing so had given countless others the power to find theirs. And so, with every upload button Michael hits, another ripple begins. A broken system may take years to fix, but sometimes all it takes is one voice to change the conversation.